Okay, so we're looking again at the dashboard. So basically the part that I want to cover here is just go over some of the menus on this side. Underneath Facilities, if you click on that, you'll see that there's a group of facilities called New Jersey NJDEP Historical Data, and then there's one called Training Facilities. Any of the facilities that have multiple houses represent facility groups. If it's just a single house, then that's just a single site. If you want to look at data that's in the group, you can expand that node, and then you'll see the list of facilities in that group, and you can click on any of those facilities in that group. If you click on the header, you will be selecting the whole group of facilities. But right now we're just going to click on Higgins Disposal. Okay. Once you click on a facility, you'll see that it does show it here underneath Facility. It will also show it on the right-hand side, in the upper right-hand side of the screen. It says Higgins Disposal, so you'll know exactly which facility you're working with. Okay, Enterprise EDP is used for uploading data. Enterprise EZView is where we're going to spend most of our time this afternoon. That's the reporting part of this web interface. Docs and Photos is just like a very basic document management, and I do mean very basic document management. This would allow you to manage all those files that you upload, the maps, the logs, all that kind of information. Again, that allows you to manage those files there. Okay, so the way that the EZView module, or the reporting module, is set up is you have build reports, pick reports, and information agents. Build reports, those are reports that are basically sent or saved from the desktop application, which is EQuIS Pro, or they're queries or reports or functions that are directly in the database that you have access to here. Okay, the pick reports, if you select a build report and you fill in all the options for that, and then you want to save those options so you don't have to keep entering that over and over again, you can save that as a pick report. The information agents allow you to schedule those reports. So let's say you have a report that is a contour or a trend chart that you like to see every quarter, knowing that you get data submittals every quarter. You can schedule that to be sent to you. And the way what you do is you set up the date range so that it knows that it'll pick up that most recent set of data, and that way when it's sent to you, you get the most recent set of data. Okay, so you can say you want 1 quarter's worth of data starting from this date back, 1 year's worth of data from this date back, and it will generate that report and just email that report to you. Okay, it may be a JPEG, it could be an Excel spreadsheet, it could be a KLM file that you could use in Google Earth, it could be multiple formats for that data that's being sent to you. But the idea is that you didn't have to come and get it from this interface. It generates the report and sends it to you. Okay, so what I'd like to do first is look at some of the build reports. Let's say we're opening up this system. You just got your link from the folks who are managing the links and the passwords for EQuIS, and you say, okay, great, I got my link. Where's my data? What do I have? So I'm going to click on my build reports if you haven't already. I'm going to come down to my facility results summary, and that allows you to select a date range if you're just interested in what did I receive over the last year, or if you're trying to figure out what you received for what's actually in the database, you can go ahead and leave the date range as it is, and as you can see, this one only has data from 2006 to 2010. If you're interested in only your detects, like show me where I have a problem, where I've got detects. All right, so to get to the selection, there's a little magnifying glass. Go ahead and click on that, and it will bring up a selection box, basically like a menu over here on the right. List of valid values. They appear over here on the right. Okay, go ahead and select yes. And then to run the report, you can decide how you want to run it. You can do a preview, which will bring back the data in the browser here, tab delimited. Obviously, that exports it out to a tab delimited. Excel will launch Excel. Google Earth will launch Google Earth. However, this data would not really work well in Google Earth. So you can also export it to a shapefile. But what we're going to do is just preview it in the screen for now. We're going to try almost all of these here today, so we'll have a chance to play with some of the other buttons. Okay, so I clicked my preview tab or preview button. All right, so now I have 30 of 30 rows here. This is representing the number of results. Okay, and I'm going to just expand some of these. I'm going to filter. I'm just going to click on this to sort it ascending and descending so I can get the number of results. So you can see that for this particular facility, we have 633 chloroform results. The last sample that came in with a detect was on 6/10/2010. Okay, so this gives you just like a snapshot, a quick look to say, all right, what do I have for data, and what do I have for data where there is a problem? You know, I've got a detect. Okay, if I ran this without the detect flag, if I ran this detect flag yes and no, you could leave it no. Oops, it won't let me do a multi-select here, I guess. There we go. That would give you all your results. You can either leave it no or select both yes and no. That would give you all your results and just give you an idea of what you have for total data for that facility. Okay, so now we have a different number here for our total number of results. Okay, so we can go to another facility real quick in that same training group there. Excuse me. Let's go to Lawrence Aviation. Run the same report. And basically, to select Lawrence Aviation, you just come up to the facility, click on that, and then expand the node where it says Training Facility, and go down and select your Lawrence Aviation option there. Okay, you need to make sure it says Lawrence Aviation top right and over here on the left. And again, I'm going to run this and see what we have. I'm going to open it this time in Excel. Now, I think Lawrence Aviation has a little bit more data than the other facility, the Higgins Disposal. So this may take just a little bit longer, and I opted to open it in Excel because I believe that it would be too much for that web browser interface. The web browser will show you sort of a snapshot of the first, 30, 50 records, but if you want to really look at all the data, you need to come into the Excel or one of the other options here. And I've been told that, again, our next version of the system using Silverlight will not have these limitations. And again, that's a limitation of the tools, not anything we can control. All right, well, there it is. I don't know if I can leave it selected and scroll, but okay, so again, you can see there's more data here, quite a few additional analytes that are being sampled here. Okay, so again, this is really just an idea of I open my report, I open my facility, I really don't know what's there. How do I find out what I have for information? And that's just giving you the counts. So the next thing I would do is I come into this build report, and I would click again on my build report. And in the center here, this is showing all the build reports. Now, I apologize, I did not sort of organize this before the meeting here, but what we would typically do is create a bunch of folders up here, and that way we could group all the analytical result type reports, group the EnviroInsight reports, group the Google Earth reports, and there would be folders that you could use to pull down and go to those specific reports. It is a little daunting to look at it, so before this gets 100% rolled out to everybody at Region 2, we'll go in and make sure that we have this organized a little bit better. And now I'm going to run just a quick hit report. So we know we have a bunch of data, but what do we have for results? So you select the analytical results hits. Okay, and again, I got there from the Build Report menu. If you don't see this big, long list of reports, you have probably selected Pick Reports. You want to select Build Reports and Analytical Results Hits. Now again, this is their production database. So we are looking at their live data for here at Region 2. Okay, so you can specify a group of locations, or you can select individual locations. If I do not select anything here, you'll get everything. I'm going to go ahead and select my groups first, because I'm afraid this is just going to return too much data here. And I'm going to select my shallow and deep wells. So I want to see what I have for hits in my shallow and deep wells. Okay. The other thing I want to select are my sample types. So I'm going to go in and select just my normal samples. I really don't want to see my equipment blanks, just my normal samples. Okay, you can add a matrix to that to further define that query. And it looks like this data set contains soil data and water data. And this WQ is a QC matrix type, and W is a water matrix that comes from the lab. Okay, so we're going to look at WG, which is groundwater data. Okay, and I'm scrolling down in this window, and then down to where I see the result node. Okay, so in the results section, you're going to select an analyte. And again, you can go in and hunt and peck for the individual analytes, or you can select from a group of analytes. And you can see here that they've created a whole bunch of groups that we've been using for the reporting here. I'm going to come down and select this really generic one, just VOA. Okay, because I want to see what I have for VOA. There doesn't appear to be any Lawrence Aviation specific. Oh, here's one right here, Lawrence Aviation VOCs. I'm sorry. Let's select the Lawrence Aviation VOCs. So that the groups are created by Nicole and Kathy and a few others who have access to go in and create these groups. And if you'd like to create some groups, you can certainly send them an email, and that email address is at the bottom of the Region 2 webpage. Okay, that's the same for creating the location groups. So location groups and analyte groups can be set up by Kathy and Nicole and a few others. And the reason for that you basically set up those groups once and you use them a million times. Now you can set up your location groups where you have deep wells and shallow wells, and you can certainly multi-select those. So you can go into your report and select a whole bunch of groups and combine them in the reporting interface, or you can decide to create a master list and combine them there. The question was, is there a way to check what's actually in that list of analytes, or that group of analytes? And here I don't believe there is a way to do that. That's probably something that could be added as a little report that basically says just dump out what are the valid groups and their members in a report.
Just to add to that.
Oh, here's Nicole.
Just to add to that, most likely if you were the RPM or the hydro or the risk assessor on this site, you would have worked with somebody, probably me, to create this group. So therefore, you should already know what's in the group. And if you want to find out, you have to contact, the RPM or whoever created it.
Right. It's probably pretty easy to just write a little report that would print that out as well. So, if that's something, obviously if you set that up 3 years ago, you may not remember exactly what's in that group, but what they're trying to do was set up some general groups. As you can see here at the bottom, there's PCB, PEST, and VOA, and that's basically the master list, and it's very large. And for your site, you probably don't need to be running this huge master list. So you would say, I want a subset of that, and that's why there's the subset for Higgins Disposal and Higgins Farm. There's a subset of just the BOAs that apply for that facility. And of course, you can always add an analyte to or chemical to that group if need be over time. Okay, so the question is, are the groups site-specific or can they be used for multiple facilities? And the answer is you can create both types of analyte groups. The idea is you can make one very specific to your facility or general that would be available to all. So the way these groups were created here is they were created using the name of the facility, but when they created them, they didn't actually say this is for this facility. So that's why we can see them here and we can access them here. Okay, so the question is, can you use this Lawrence Aviation analyte group on another facility? And yes, if it is in the list here, you can certainly use it if you're logged into a different facility. There's also the ability to, basically what they will do is if you say, I really like the Lawrence Aviation, but I want to use it for my facility and add these two analytes. They basically copy that and add the two analytes. So it's very simple to set up these groups, and you can create multiple groups, you can combine groups, you can use these. These are main purpose is for reporting, and they are very valuable when you get down to reporting, because I'd have a really hard time if somebody told me to go in and pick the 30 VOCs that apply to my facility. It would, and to be able to pick that consistently every time would just be impossible. So that's the purpose of these, is to set up your reporting. And you can set up analyte groups to be very specific. For if you have a quarterly report that you always have to run 4 analytes. Well, you could probably remember 4 analytes, but it would be a lot easier if you could just set up that group and say, okay, I'm running my quarterly report. Click. I'm going to click on just my quarterly report analyte group. Location groups are very similar again. The idea is that you can have one location can exist in many groups. A location group can represent an operable unit. It can represent, down gradient, up gradient. It could represent wells that are off-site or just the wells that are on-site. In some of the examples here, you'll see that the groups are set up as the shallow wells and the deep wells, so that you can easily run a report and say, just select all my shallow wells. As with the analyte groups, you can combine them in the interface here and select multiple for reporting purposes. Okay, so we were on analytical results hits. So I'm selecting just my Lawrence Aviation VOCs, and I've already selected my matrix, my sample type for normal, and my matrix WG. Excuse me, and here I'm selecting my shallow and deep wells. Okay, I'm going to dump this data to a preview screen, and it's saying that there are no results for that data set. So let me go back and look. And apparently for the shallow and deep wells, they did not do any sampling or for VOCs. Some of these wells, if I'm thinking of the right facility here, were added later on. So I can expand that and add to that. Let me see what's in my West Bay Zone 1 through 4. So I'm going to multi-select those, hit my preview screen. There's nothing in that either. Who in the room has the Lawrence Aviation facility? No, what group?
Nobody in the room.
Not here. Nobody in the room? Okay, let's switch to another facility. All right, we'll go to the Higgins Disposal Facility, since I know there's somebody in the room that's theirs. Okay. Now, for this hits report, I'm going to just come up here. I don't know if you guys. Sorry, I'm doing this too fast. Click on the facility, expand your node where it says Training Facility, and then go in and just click on Higgins Disposal. It'll close that up once you select it, and then again you'll see your name Higgins Disposal here and your Higgins Disposal in the top right as well. All right, this time I'm not going to select any locations or location groups, which means it will give me back all of my data in the hits report. I'm going to go in and say I do want to just filter this on my normal environmental results, not any of my QC, my trip blanks or field blanks or anything like that. Okay, I'm going to select a matrix again, just my groundwater. Appears that's all that's in this data set, except for the QC data. And then I'm going to scroll down to the bottom underneath the result node, and I'm going to click on groups again. And I'm going to select from my Higgins disposal group here. And I could select my VOCs and my SVOCs. I want to see if I have any hits with the VOCs and the SVOCs. Hit my preview. And it's taking a little longer to crunch, so I'm assuming there's something there. We've got 1,708 rows. Okay, so we have some data there. Now again, this browser interface is only going to show you the first 30 here. If you wanted to dump all this information out to an Excel spreadsheet, the other option is to select here. And I'll try to highlight. Oh, I don't think I can highlight these rows. There's a bunch of rows and columns here. We can scroll to the right, and it's not really displaying too well. Let me make that a little bit bigger. And we can look at the data, result values, the reporting results values. So we do have some data here. It looks like the data where we have some results. We've got some 1,1,2 trichloroethane. We've got a whole bunch of good stuff. PCE. And what we've done today is we've saved a couple of reports that will use that PCE data and a few others. So again, this is a good way to come in. You can use this to just sort and say, all right, what do I have for different analytes? You know, what are my highest values? What do I want to look at first? So again, this is just a quick review to say, all right, I want to look at my detects. I want to know where my problems are, and where do I go from here? So I want to start looking at this data in different tools. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. All right, that was our Higgins disposal. So let's go in and take a look at some of the other reports that are here so that we can look at the same data in a different way. I'm going to first go in and look at a couple of little trend charts. And what I'd like to do first is select the multi-parameter. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here in my list. I'm going to select the multi-parameter time series chart. So again, scroll down. It's in alphabetical order there. Multi-parameter time series chart. And what this allows you to do, we're going to look at the flip side of this as well, but this particular report allows you to look at one well with multiple analytes. The next one we look at will be multiple wells with one analyte. But first we're going to look at one well with multiple analytes. So I'm going to select my location, and we're going to go down and location RW3. Okay, I'm going to leave the default date range in there. You can certainly narrow it down if you want to look at a specific, just 2010. But it actually looks like it's 1 year, so we'll leave it at that and see what we get. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down a little bit more. The next couple of sections where we have charts, I'm going to minimize that. Oops, I don't think I want to minimize the whole thing. And I'm going to come down. There's some header information, footer information. You can obviously customize this a little bit. Once you've run this once, you can come in and save it as a PIC report or EZView, and then you won't have to excuse me, you won't have to enter this information every time you come in. So I'm going to scroll down till I get to the item that says, or the node that says Series 1. Click on the parameter list. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a parameter list displayed. And I'm going to select for my first parameter, I'm going to select TCE. So I'm going to, one thing that will be different in our next version, which I will be very happy about, are these little selections on the other side here. So I'm going to filter that by clicking on the top of the name column, which will sort that by name, because I do not know my cast numbers. And then I'm going to scroll down and select TCE. Okay, there it is, trichloroethylene. Ethylene. Okay. So that's for my first Series 1. I want to make sure that I define what matrix I want to look at. So I'm going to click on the matrix little magnifying glass there. And I'm going to click on the WG well, groundwater. Now, we had a comment in the first session that it would be very helpful if this matrix code list also includes the descriptions, and there is a way to set that up. I'm not sure why it wasn't set up in here, but we will make sure that that option is set to show the code and the description. Okay, for the axes, we'll leave it at left. For the line type, we'll leave it the way it is. The color, let's leave this one as red, and we'll change the next one. Okay, so the next series here, Series 2, and I'm going to scroll down a little bit. Well, I'm going to select my parameter, and the parameter I'm going to select for this one is PCE. Basically, the way those matrix work, I'm not sure where they originated from. I think it came from like an old ERPMS or something, that naming scheme. If some of you are familiar with the old ERPMS and the new ERPMS, I guess. And they sort of group it where the first character, W, stands for water, and then the second character defines what type of water. So that's, I believe, why they used the W. It will allow you to sort it, and all the W's would come together. So you've got WG for groundwater, WS for surface water, that type of thing. Okay. So again, I'm going to select for my second parameter. I'm going to select PCE. Okay, that's correct. So we got TCE, PCE, and for the options with that, of course, we want to compare it to groundwater as well. So go ahead and select your matrix, and I'm going to select my matrix again, the same, WG. I'm going to change my line color this time. My line color for this one, I'm going to make it green. So you click on the little color and select green. Okay. One more parameter, and then we will fire this off. Now feel free to just keep playing with it. If you want to fire it off and come back and modify it some more, you can certainly do that. But I'm going to go down to my Series 3 parameter. Click on the little magnifying glass. And near the bottom, you'll see something that says water elevation. Okay. Water elevation. You can sort it by clicking on the name or clicking on the code. And we don't see it. Did we sort that somehow? No, I just scrolled all the way to the bottom. Okay, so I've selected my water I'm going to select my axes, because that's going to be a different unit, right? So I'm going to select my axes to be on the right. And I'm going to select my line color to be blue. Okay. Now, once I've done that, I'm going to come up and hit my report button. Now, this looks a little funny because there's just this little teeny blue line at the end here. Apparently, this data set does not have any water levels entered until the very end of whatever that, I can't read what that says, that date range. But basically, the water levels were entered later in this report. Okay, so I'm going to close that. Okay, so the way I got Excel was I went back to my report here, the little building part. At the very top, there's an option that says Report Type. Now, when we send it out to Excel, it does something just a little bit different, which is typical for Microsoft. And it takes the data and it changes the way the axes come out. And so you'd probably have to modify the axes a little bit. Now it looks like it's just this little teeny bit of data right in the middle here, but the axes now are a little bit different. Now you do have control over this in the interface. So I'm going to close that. Save changes no. So all this information here in the middle where it says chart, add the footer, add the header, manipulate the left axis, the right axis. If you click on this where it says Use Manual Setup, then you can go in and specifically set it to a range and have a little bit more control over how that prints out. You've got the tick intervals, all that kind of stuff. So you do have the ability to come in and tweak this a little bit. Once you've done that, if you come up and say, save this as a pick report, like I said, if you save this as a pick report, then all those options will be saved and you don't have to go through and save all those every single time you come in here to run this. All right, let's try another one. I'm going to come out to my bill reports again. And we're just going to try another similar type report. We're going to run down where it says multi-well time series chart. Okay, so this is sort of the opposite of that. The first one I ran was one well, multiple analytes, and a water level. This one is multiple wells and analyte. Okay, so I'm going to select my parameter first. And I'm going to select that same parameter, TCE or PCE, whichever one you want. Either one of those will give you a nice little chart there. Okay, all right, I'm going to select PCE because I'm right here. My matrix again for groundwater. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit past all the part where you can configure the header and footer and all that. And I'm going to go to my location. Excuse me. So Series 1, my location, I'm going to select RW3, which is the one we just looked at. Okay? And I'm going to leave that as red. Series 2, I'm going to select RW2. Okay, and then I'm not going to bother selecting water level for this one. We know it's got that funky little thing there going on with only a couple of records in the data set. I'm going to go ahead and report that. Oops, I forgot to change it to, okay, so everything's red. So let's go back and change, I just closed that, now I'm back to Series 2. I want to change the color for Series 2 to blue. And then I'm going to run that report. And you can see I do need to change my axes, or what I could do, and I'm going to go back again one more time, and change my Series 2 axes from left to right. Hit my report again. And that gives you quite a different picture there. So again, here's the axes on the left, axes on the right, and you have the blue as RW2 and the red as RW3. Okay, now obviously if you look at that report, you can add more wells, you can add, the other one you can add more parameters, so that's just a sort of quick view. Okay, I'm going to close that. So you have the ability to add in, many wells here, as you can see. What I'd like to show next is just like a quick statistics report. So you can see, and that's what we're showing are trend charts. Let's look at something that's very different, are the statistics reports. So I'm going to come down to my build report, to the very bottom where it says statistics. And you can see it begins with statistics, so they're all grouped together. And I'm going to do statistics by location. Sorry, I clicked on it again and it went too fast. Again, all the way down the bottom, this option here that says statistics, analytical statistics by location. Okay, go ahead and select that. And you will, this little pick box will be displayed. Again, there's an option to select the analytical result report. And this one is set up for VOCs. That's probably fine. Let's select an action level. And we'll compare this to the New Jersey. You can select multiple action levels here. We will compare it to the two New Jersey action levels. So there's New Jersey GQS and New Jersey MCL. Again, hold down your control key and you can select multiple there. Once you've selected both of those, go ahead and hit your report button at the top. And this is going to generate a report and dump it out to Excel. Okay, so at the top here, again, this is by well. You can see that we have some additional, there's a little bit more data here. There are 14 records that they're using for this statistic, to calculate these statistics. And what it's showing up here with the color coding is if it's an exceedance of the New Jersey GQS, it's showing up this dark orange. If it's an exceedance of the New Jersey MCLs, it's this light yellow. And then down the bottom here, you can see that there are, on the left-hand side here, we've got the Mann-Kendall, and then there's the confidence, 80, 90, 95, 99. And is it a negative or positive trend? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that. I'm not going to bother saving it. I can generate it any time. So the idea here is the saved analytical results report. This allows you to have more control over the input for that. And again, that would come from, I'm going to click on my build reports, this saved analytical result report here. And this, I haven't shown this yet, but this is, it has a lot of options here. And once you have it, a few of these set up where you're always looking at your normal samples, or you're always looking at your soil or your groundwater, instead of having to come in here and select this every single time, it just allows you to save it so that you can go in and quickly pick it and apply it to the report that you want to run. Okay? So let's go look at some more reports. I'm going to come back to my main build report screen, and let's look at some reports that we ran yesterday. And I'm going to show them sort of from the basic to, and then build on that and add more features to that. So the basic one would be where it says Higgins disposal, VOC, X tab, meaning cross tab, groundwater. Okay, go ahead and click on that. Now this was run from the analytical results, and as you can see, I don't have to go in and select all those options. I can select one of my saved analytical results reports. So I know this Higgins disposal groundwater will give me a good set of data because it's for my VOCs, and I know I've got a problem with my VOCs. So I'm going to select that saved report. I'm going to send it out to Excel, hit my report button, and basically that will run the data, query the data, and format it in a little cross-tab type format or a matrix type format. Okay, so in the last session, somebody asked me about those little dashes in the middle of the cell there And basically they asked me if we hand entered those dashes. And the answer is no. That was added as part of the formatting for this report. We said if when you are querying this data you find that you have a null or have no value, meaning it was not analyzed, it would come up as an empty cell. We don't always like to see an empty cell because we want to make sure it's been addressed. So if it is truly has not been analyzed and that would normally be null, we added into the formatting that we wanted to put dash in there. You could always put ND or NA or whatever you like as your little identifier there for, there was no analysis. And that would show up in this report as well. So this is sort of the basic crosstab. And if you like your locations going across the top and your analytes going down the side, then that's fine. You can always add more parameters to either of those, the items going across the top or the analyte list going down the side. You can also swap this. So we have seen reports where you have the analytes going across the top, and that is always possible too. It's very easy to format these. The question is, are the units always reported in the cell? And the answer is no. Matter of fact, one of these reports, I ran it specifically separating the units from the numbers so that people can, a risk assessor or whatever can run calculations on it. So again, it's just part of the way you set up the report. If you say, yeah, for this one I want them combined, but for this one, no, I don't want them combined, it's just a matter of setting it up in the front end. We're not sort of dragging you through the whole setup of all these reports. Basically, you set up a bunch of templates for yourself, and then you can use these templates in multiple ways. Okay, I'm going to close that, and I'm going to come back to my build reports again. I'm going to go back down to that area where I had Higgins disposal. And the next one I'm going to look at is the Higgins disposal VOC X-tab groundwater exceedance. Okay, so click on that, and again, we're going to come in to the saved action level, and there's one in there called a training action level exceedance report. Go ahead and select on that. Again, we're going to output to Excel, hit your report button, and it will go out and run that as an exceedance. Now you can put in multiple exceedances here. We've set this up to just show one, just to give you an example. We have the New Jersey GQS action levels in here. And if there's an exceedance, that action level is bold. So for example, in this first row here, it's bold, but I can see the values right here are not bold. So there's additional results off to the right, additional locations, and there is an exceedance somewhere for that chemical. The next row down, there are, it says 10 micrograms per liter, and that is an exceedance, so that's showing in bold. If I had three action levels here to compare against, what it allows you to do is to say, okay, I want the first one to be bold, the second one to be underlined, and the third one to be italicized. And if you have an exceedance of all three, that cell would be bold, underlined, and italicized, or some combination of that if you only exceed one or two. Does that make sense? But this is part of, you can publish these from the Pro, and then there's some limited capability to manage this once it gets into Enterprise. Basically, if you have a report that's similar to this, that's your favorite report, get it to like Nicole and Kathy, and they can help you figure out how to create that report. They can say, okay, this is how you do it. I mean, part of the training on this is that you don't get bogged down with the whole, how do I do this, where do I put it, how do I access it. This is really just to let you access the data quickly. The setup and how do I create that is what Nicole and Kathy and folks are working on. Okay, I'm going to close that. I got one more like this that I want to show, which will give the answer your question from earlier about combining the cells. or in the cells, and that would be, again, down on your build reports, Higgins disposal, VOC, crosstab, WG, sum. Okay, Higgins disposal, it's that third report there, VOC, xtab, WG, sum. Same parameters that you have to enter here, basically. We're going to go with our Higgins disposal VOC groundwater query for this one. So I'm going to click on that. And go ahead and run your report. And this one will look a little bit different because we did not combine the cells, the unit along with the number there. Now you can put the qualifier in there. You can put whatever information you want to display in the center there. That's again, a preference, however you like to look at your data. Let me get the whole thing here. There, so the folks there can see it. Now, what we have here is, and I just done at the bottom. Okay, at the very bottom, I just put it in bold so we can draw attention to it there. It is summing the Higgins disposal VOC group. And so you have a nice little sum down there. And again, that's part of the reason why we are showing this, is just to show that the flexibility where you can combine that. Now, you could select multiple groups here and have it divide out this and have it sorted so that you have your VOCs on your first set with those summed, your SVOCs on the second set with those summed, and that again is just an option and a preference on how you like to look at your data if you want to combine different analyte groups. The other way you could do that is say, well, I really want my VOCs and my SVOCs to come out on a separate workbook. So the first workbook would be, VOCs, second workbook would be SVOCs, that type of thing. So, and it's not limited to 2. It really, you can put as much as Excel will take in here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close this. All right, should we look at some fun Google Earth stuff? Yay! Pictures, pictures. All right, so we're going to go look at some Google Earth. All right, so here's a skinny on Google Earth. We have it installed here in the training room. We have been told by the security officer here at Region 2, if you put in a request to have that installed on your machine, you can do that, and as basically this is sort of like a justification. I need to use it for this application, or I want to use it for that, just so that they are aware. Basically, if you have a justification, it sounds like you can get it installed on your desktop. You have to go through the normal procedures, whatever that means, for requesting to get software installed on your machine, and I do not know what that takes, but I'm sure you guys do. All right, so Google Earth. Google Earth, let's look at some water level data, and there's a query. There's a whole bunch of queries down here in the middle. Let's do this water level XYZ plot. So I'm going to click on that. And then I'm going to, well, mine's already selected. I'm not sure if yours is, but click on the little magnifying glass here. And we've only got one set up at the moment, so you can click on the water level report. Leave it as contours. I'm not going to mess with the other platelets or any of that stuff. We'll just go ahead and run it and see what we get. Hit your report. What it will do is launch Google Earth. So Google Earth, we're going to look at this with some additional analytical data and whatnot. There are limitations to Google Earth. It can only handle certain data, a certain amount of data. So if you run a Google Earth and it comes up and it says, gives you an error, that's a Google Earth error that you've tried to put a data set that's too big into Google Earth. So you just have to try it again, I guess. So if you have Google Earth open in the background, this must have been open from earlier today when we were playing with it. It will show you in your places, it'll show you additional things that you've run, additional queries you've run. Okay, so what you want to do is you can toggle them on and off. It's like saving like a little layer here, but you can toggle it on and off as long as you don't close your Google Earth. So the other thing this allows you to do, because there's a limitation with Google Earth and the amount of data you can put into it, you can run like one analyte at a time and then bring them all in as separate layers and then stack them up on top of each other. Now again, this is a picture, okay? This is not GIS. This is a picture. It's data draped over this picture. I would be pretty hard-pressed to say this point right here in the middle is exactly on target. And that's, again, because this is really a picture, and you have to realize that we're basically draping this data over this photo. Is that the best way to say it? The coordinates that are in the database, which are probably pretty accurate, draped over whatever Google Earth coordinates are, which I can't say what the accuracy is. And their elevation as well. Okay. Did everybody get to this point? Was everybody able to see a groundwater? Oh, they can't see it in the webinar. Can I highlight it?
I know. There's a center button.
Yeah. I don't know. Sorry, folks, online. But you can play with this too later, I guess. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. Actually, I'm going to minimize it for mine. And then we'll do another Google Earth. And Kristen, you'll probably have to help me a little bit, lead me through some of the other ones here. So I'm going to go down to the Google Earth. How about the analytical results? Or the aggregate one was the one you said was kind of nice. Is this the one you were talking about?
No, that's not a
oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Is it this one? Analytical results X, Y, Z plot? Okay, so I clicked on it again too quick. Build report, analytical results, X, Y, Z plot. Okay. And I'm going to use another saved analytical result. And we want to use probably just one analyte. So that would be this PCE.
There's a PCE and a PCE, which, yeah, they're both.
Well, one of them was too much data, I remember. So I'm going to select this.
2010.
Okay, I'm going to select this 2010, and we'll see how that does. And again, we've got contour selected here. Was this the one where it was bringing in the layers and we could show the time? Okay, so what it's doing is it's loading in it grouped it, I think, by date is what it did. So it's grouped the sample rounds by date, and that's why it looks like a very interesting kind of way to view it. It's all piled on top of each other. So I'm going to attempt to do this again, see if I can manage this. I'm going to do this little time series slider doohickey thing. That's the technical term, by the way. Okay, so here's piling it up on a sort of a time series, which is kind of interesting. It would be nice if it removed the previous one so that you could look at it, sort of compare it a little bit. But the first couple of first couple of dates, look, you can see it, and then it just gets to be too much. Right. So what someone's saying here in the room is if you narrowed down the time series, you could look at specific chunks, and that way it wouldn't be so much data piled up on top of each other. Okay. So the question was, if I wanted to take this data into a public meeting, before I do that, how would I know what the margin of error is here on this Google Earth? And Mark responded that, and I hope I get this right, Mark, that the tools are getting better all the time, and that they're always taking new pictures. In the United States here, it's higher it has a higher accuracy, and you'd probably be more confident doing it. That is your call. I think I would. Yeah. So the other thing would be double check in ArcGIS and make sure that it looks pretty similar, or that the locations line up and whatnot. The comment was, if you had to draw a line in the sand and your house was right underneath that little red dot, you might not want to see. You want to make sure that that's correct. The key is that this is really just another tool in your toolbox to give you a quick view of the data. So it should be taken, as it's a picture and a quick view of the data. And Mark just said, for delineating chemical plumes, you really don't want to rely on this. This is not the tool to use. Obviously, again, we're really just trying to say this is a picture, give you a rough idea. It's a snapshot. It'll allow you to just say, okay, this is basically what I have. But I'm not sure you'd want to hand this over to the lawyers or the public meeting. What Nicole commented on was, she asked me to mention the 5-year review. And basically, once this data has been entered into EQuIS, it's in EQuIS, it's in the database. It makes the 5-year review process much more streamlined. You can use those crosstabs. We can, Nicole and Kathy and others can create additional crosstabs. The point is that process of pulling all that data together for the 5-year review is significantly reduced once it's in the database, because it's a matter of clicking on a report, setting the date range, and producing a report. You do not have to go and pull that data manually. And you probably can comment actually in more detail about that, Nicole, than I can. Right. So the other comment that Nicole had was, we talked about these information agents, where basically you can set it up that if you have long-term monitoring going on and your data is coming in and there's no problem, if all of a sudden you receive an exceedance, you can have the system send you an email. So it doesn't mean you have to go in and paw through that data every quarter or every time that there's been a sampling round added to the database. The only time you would need to go in and look at it is if you receive that email that says, whoa, you guys got an exceedance here, and here's the numbers, here's the report, and it would the system can automatically send you that report, email that report to you. So it's basically like proactive. It can watch the system, it can watch the data being imported, and when it finds some sort of an exceedance or something that you specifically want to see, again, it sets a trigger that goes out and says, okay, I need to send this report to such and such manager. And it can broadcast it to a whole group of people. It can send it to one specific person. You basically can just set it up to send that data however often you want, and to whatever group of people you want to send it to. There's been a section added to the Region 2 format for vapor intrusion, and again, that allows you to manage the building-specific information as well as the samples that are taken at the building or around the building. Yes, so somebody asked about the cross-facility query, and she specifically asked about Google Earth. There's multiple places you can do cross-facility queries. You can create a contour. You could create and we're going to show the contour cross-facility tomorrow with the ArcGIS so that we can display that. You can create a cross-facility query and display it in Google Earth if Google Earth will cooperate. But due to the limitations on how much data you can put into Google Earth, that may or may not work. So you may have to limit it to like 1/4's worth of data or something like that. Again, that depends on how many facilities you have selected, how many sample rounds, that type of thing, how many analytes you're going to look at and whatnot. So there's, again, the sort of the tabular reports, as in crosstab reports. There are basically any place that excuse me, your reporting, if you want to do a cross-facility query, that capability exists. So you can, like I said, we're going to show how you do that tomorrow in the ArcGIS, where you can display those nice cross-facility queries in ArcGIS. ArcGIS can obviously handle a little bit more robust data sets than Google Earth. But the idea is, again, once the way you get set up into a group is your facilities that you belong to or that you are managing can be considered one group, or you may want to create a group that includes facilities around you, so facilities that you're not managing, but obviously that information impacts you, so it would be helpful if you were part of those facilities as well. So you would have the ability to go in and report on those. Obviously you can't change any of the data, and the purpose of this interface is not really to change the data, is to report and view the data. So from here you can certainly have access to other facilities so that you can look at a larger group or a region, and to have access to those you just need to let Nicole and Kathy know. They're the ones who are setting up the users and the permissions and whatnot. So the question was about VI data, vapor intrusion locations where they don't typically go out and survey those locations, but how do they get the data in? And you heard my answer. Sorry, I should have repeated the question first. But the answer is that there are multiple ways to define that data and the accuracy of that data by saying that the method you use for reporting that data was either selected by a off of a map, a topo sheet, or something along those lines. And to figure out what those methods are that are acceptable, if you go to the valid values manual, there's a definition in there for each one of the codes, and there's a whole bunch of them. So, and for historical data, let me just comment on that while I'm here. Is that okay? For historical data, we have folks who say, well, you know, I've got this data, I've got the analytical results. I know there's a bunch of locations out there, but I have no clue where these locations are. Truly don't know where those locations are. And it's not like, oh, I think it's by the corner of this building. It's that old that we don't even have a coordinate or an idea where it is. Well, that data is still important. That data is still valid. And what you would do is you would use the centroid or the center of the facility and put the coordinate for the center of the facility. And again, you can pick that off of a quad sheet or off of Google Earth or one of those types of applications. The benefit is that you can actually get the data in. So you would have problems looking at it on GIS. All the points would be on top of each other, but you could still run a trend chart. You could still run other types of reports that give you valuable information for that data. Okay, if there's no more questions, I'm going to turn this back over to Nicole.
Wow. Yes, thank you so much, Janet. That was wonderful. Really great.